There was a little store in almost every corner in black neighborhoods across America. It did not have a fancy name or a big sign. It did not have automatic doors or air conditioning or security cameras watching your every move. What it had was everything a community needed, packed into four walls that smelled like possibility and penny candy. That corner store was more than a place to buy bread and milk. It was a gathering place, a community center, a classroom, and for the children who walked through its doors with coins clutched in sweaty palms, it was pure magic. Before we dive into these memories, if you're new here, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another trip down memory lane. And as you watch, drop a comment below sharing your own memories of your neighborhood corner store. We love hearing your stories, and they make this community so special. If you grew up black in America during the 1950s, 1960s, or 1970s, you know exactly what store I'm talking about. You remember the screen door that slammed behind you? You remember the wooden floors that creaked under your feet? You remember the glass cases filled with candy that seemed to stretch on forever? Each piece a treasure waiting to be chosen. And you remember the person behind the counter who knew your name, knew your mama's name, and would not hesitate to call her if you got out of line. This is the story of the Black Neighborhood Corner Store. The story of the owners who ran them, the communities they served, and the children whose lives were shaped by every visit. The corner store in black neighborhoods was not like the chain convenience stores that would come later. It was not corporate or anonymous, it was personal. The store might be owned by a black family who lived upstairs or just down the street. It might be run by an older couple who had been serving the neighborhood for decades, or it might belong to an immigrant family who had found their place in the community by providing what people needed. Whatever the ownership, the corner store operated on relationships, not transactions. Walking into the corner store was like walking into someone's extended living room. The owner knew you. If they did not know you personally, they knew whose child you were, whose grandchild, whose niece or nephew. They had watched you grow from a baby carried on your mama's hip to a child running errands on your own. They knew if you were trustworthy or if you needed watching. They knew if your family was going through hard times or if things were good. This knowledge was not written down anywhere. It lived in the owner's memory, accumulated over years of daily interactions. Hey there, baby. Your mama doing all right? Tell your grandmother I said hello. I haven't seen your brother in a while. He's still working over at the plant? These casual exchanges were the fabric of community, woven one conversation at a time across the counter of the corner store. The corner store was often housed in a building that had seen better days. The paint might be peeling on the outside. The sign might be hand-lettered, faded by years of sun and rain. The screen door might have a hole patched with tape or wire. None of this mattered. What mattered was what was inside, the essentials of daily life, arranged on shelves and in cases by someone who understood exactly what the neighborhood needed. The layout of the corner store was efficient, every inch of space put to use. Shelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling, packed with canned goods, boxes of cereal, bags of rice and beans, bottles of cooking oil, and all the staples of home cooking. A cooler in the back held milk, butter, eggs, and cold drinks. A freezer might offer ice cream bars and frozen dinners. Near the front, where the owner could keep an eye on things, was the most important real estate in the store, the candy counter. The floor was usually wooden, worn smooth by generations of feet. It creaked and groaned as you walked, announcing your presence to everyone in the store. The ceiling might have a tin pattern, pressed metal squares that had been painted over so many times the design was barely visible. A single ceiling fan might turn slowly overhead, pushing the warm air around without really cooling anything. The lighting was dim compared to modern stores, casting everything in a soft glow that made the space feel intimate rather than commercial. For children, the corner store was a destination of wonder. Being sent to the store was not a chore, it was an adventure. Your mother would press coins into your hand and give you a list, sometimes written on a scrap of paper, sometimes just instructions spoken aloud that you repeated back to prove you had listened. Get me a loaf of bread, a quart of milk, and a can of tomatoes, and don't lose that change. The walk to the store was its own journey. You might go alone if you were old enough, feeling grown and responsible with money in your pocket. You might go with siblings or friends, the errand becoming a social occasion. You passed familiar houses and waved at neighbors sitting on porches. You avoided the yard where the mean dog lived. You kicked rocks and jumped over cracks, taking your time because the destination was worth savoring. Arriving at the store, you pulled open that screen door and heard it slam behind you, announcing your entrance. The owner looked up from whatever they were doing, reading a newspaper, stocking shelves, talking to another customer, and acknowledged you with a nod or a greeting. You were known here. You belonged. The candy counter was the heart of the corner store for children. It was usually a glass case, positioned where the owner could watch it carefully, filled with more varieties of sweets than seemed possible. The selection varied from store to store, but certain items were universal, appearing in corner stores across Black America as if mandated by some unwritten law. Penny candy was the foundation of the corner store candy experience. For 1 cent, you could get a piece of candy, sometimes 2 pieces if the owner was feeling generous, or if you were a regular customer in good standing. The options were dizzying. Mary Janes with their peanut butter centers wrapped in yellow wax paper, squirrel nut zippers that stuck to your teeth, fireballs that burned your tongue but you kept eating anyway, bazooka bubble gum with the tiny comics inside, Tootsie Rolls in their brown wrappers, jawbreakers that changed colors as you sucked on them, candy cigarettes that let you pretend to be grown, wax lips and wax bottles filled with sweet syrup, Lemonheads that made your face pucker, now and laters that promised you could save some for later, but you never did. Choosing your candy was a serious process that could not be rushed. You studied the options through the glass, pointing at different items, asking prices, calculating how to get the most for your money. The owner was patient with this process, understanding that for a child with a dime or a quarter, these decisions mattered. They would answer your questions, make suggestions, and wait while you made up your mind. Beyond penny candy, the corner store offered treats at every price point. Nickel candy bars, Hershey's, Snickers, Three Musketeers, Milky Way lined the shelves above the counter. Bags of chips hung from a rack, small bags that were just right for one person. Pickles floated in jars of brine on the counter, sold individually for a nickel or a dime. Some stores had a machine that dispensed hot peanuts, roasted in the shell, scooped into paper bags, and sold by weight. Others had ice cream coolers where you could buy popsicles, fudgsicles, or ice cream sandwiches to eat on the walk home. Drinks came from coolers that were either built into the floor or standing upright against the wall. Glass bottles were the norm. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, RC Cola, Orange Crush, grape soda, and cream soda in bottles that were returned for deposit. The cooler was not self-service. You told the owner what you wanted and they retrieved it for you, wiping the bottle dry before handing it over. Some stores let you drink your soda right there, standing at the counter or sitting on a crate outside before returning the empty bottle. For children with money to spend, the corner store offered an embarrassment of riches. Every visit required decisions about allocation of resources. Did you want one big candy bar or 10 pieces of penny candy? Did you want something sweet or something salty? Did you want to eat everything now or save some for later? These decisions felt monumental at the time. Early lessons in economics and self-control played out across the candy counter. The corner store served purposes far beyond candy. For families in the neighborhood, it was where you went when you needed something and could not make it to the big grocery store across town. The selection was limited but practical, focusing on the staples that every household needed: bread, milk, eggs, butter, sugar, flour, coffee. The building blocks of daily meals were always available. The prices at the corner store were higher than at the supermarket. Everyone knew this, but the corner store offered something the supermarket could not: proximity, convenience, and credit. When you ran out of milk on a Sunday evening, you did not drive across town to the grocery store. You walked to the corner and bought a quart. When you needed an ingredient for dinner and realized you were short, the corner store was 5 minutes away. The higher prices were the cost of convenience, and most families were willing to pay. More importantly, the corner store offered credit to customers who needed it. The owner kept a book behind the counter, a ledger where purchases were recorded for customers who did not have cash that day. "Put it on the book" was a phrase every corner store customer knew. When payday came, you settled your account and started fresh. This informal credit system kept families fed when money was tight, which for many black families in the 1960s and 1970s was more often than not. The corner store was also a communication hub for the neighborhood. Before cell phones and social media, before even widespread telephone access, the corner store was where news traveled. The owner heard everything and often served as a message relay system for the community. If you see Mrs. Johnson, tell her to call her daughter. She's been trying to reach her. Did you hear about the Davis boy? Got accepted to college. First one in the family. They're hiring down at the factory. You might want to tell your husband to go apply. Standing in the corner store, you learned who was sick and who was getting better, who had died and who had been born, who was getting married, and who was getting divorced. The store was where you found out about community events, church functions, and neighborhood concerns. It was local news in real time, delivered in person, filtered through the owner who knew what mattered to the people they served. Children standing in line for candy absorbed all of this adult conversation without fully understanding it. They learned the rhythm of community communication, the way information flowed through networks of relationship and proximity. They learned that their neighborhood was an interconnected web of families and stories, not just a collection of houses and streets. The owners of corner stores in black neighborhoods occupied a special position in the community. They were business people, yes, but they were also neighbors, advisors, and sometimes surrogate parents. They watched over the children who came into their stores, keeping an eye out for trouble and reporting back to families when needed. Your boy was in here acting up. You might want to talk to him. Some older kids were trying to get your daughter to go with them. I sent her on home. That child looked hungry. I gave him a sandwich. You can pay me back when you're able. This kind of community surveillance was not experienced as intrusion, but as care. The store owner was an extra set of eyes, another adult who had the authority and willingness to guide children toward right behavior. The child who stole from the corner store was not just dealt with by the owner called the child's mother, and the child faced consequences at home that were far worse than anything the store could impose. Black-owned corner stores were particularly important as examples of entrepreneurship and economic independence. The owner was a visible success story, someone who had built something of their own, who employed family members or neighbors, who kept money circulating within the community. Children who saw black store owners learned that business ownership was possible, that you did not have to work for someone else your whole life. These were lessons not taught in school, but demonstrated daily across the counter of the corner store. The corner store experience was sensory in ways that modern convenience stores are not. The smell hit you as soon as you walked through the door. It was a mixture of things: the dill brine from the pickle jar, the sweetness of candy, the dustiness of old shelves, the wooden floors, the whatever was cooking on the hot plate in the back. Every store had its own particular smell, instantly recognizable to the children who frequented it. The sounds were distinctive too: the bell above the door or the slam of the screen announcing arrivals and departures, the creak of the floorboards under feet, the electric hum of the coolers, the radio playing somewhere in the back, soul music or gospel or baseball games, depending on the owner's preference and the time of day, the murmur of adult conversation punctuated by laughter, the clink of coins on the counter and the ring of the cash register, and the textures, the smooth glass of the candy case under your palms as you leaned in to look, the rough round paper bags that your purchases were placed in, the cold wet surface of a soda bottle just pulled from the cooler, the sticky sweetness of penny candy stuck to your fingers. These sensory memories embedded themselves deep, becoming part of how you experienced childhood itself. Running errands to the corner store was how many black children learned financial responsibility. Your mother gave you $1 and told you what to buy. You had to keep track of what things cost, make sure you did not spend more than you had, and bring back the correct change. Failure to bring back change was a serious offense, triggering questions and accusations and sometimes punishment. Where's my change? What do you mean they didn't have any? They always have bread. You spent my change on candy, didn't you? Don't lie to me. These interactions taught children that money mattered, that adults kept track of every penny, that trustworthiness was demonstrated through small acts of honesty over time. A child who could be sent to the store and come back with the right items and the right change was a child who could be trusted with greater responsibilities. The corner store errand was a test, repeated over and over, building a track record of reliability. The store owner participated in this education, whether they intended to or not. They watched children count their money, sometimes correcting miscalculations, sometimes letting the mistake stand as a lesson. They made change slowly and visibly, counting back from the purchase price to the amount tendered. They sent children home to get more money if what they brought was not enough. The corner store was a classroom where arithmetic had real consequences. The corner store also served as a social space for adults, particularly men. The front of the store or the sidewalk just outside was where men gathered to talk, argue, joke, and pass time. They might be waiting for the bus, taking a break from work, or simply enjoying company on a slow afternoon. Crates and overturned buckets served as seats. A game of checkers or dominoes might be in progress. The conversation ranged from sports to politics to neighborhood gossip to memories of the past. Children navigating through these groups of men learned social skills through observation. They saw how men greeted each other, how they showed respect to elders, how they argued without fighting, how they told stories and listened to stories in return. They learned the verbal sparring of the dozens, the quick wit required to hold your own in adult conversation. They learned that there were codes of behavior among men, rules about what was said and what was left unsaid. The men gathered at the corner store kept an eye on the neighborhood. They noticed strangers. They observed unusual activity. They protected the children who walked past, calling out to them by name and asking where they were headed. This informal security was part of what made the neighborhood feel safe, what made it possible for children to walk to the store alone without their parents worrying. The relationship between the corner store and the community was reciprocal. The store served the community, but the community also supported the store. Families might pay slightly higher prices and forgo the convenience of the supermarket specifically to keep the corner store in business. They understood that the store provided jobs, kept money in the neighborhood, and offered services that would disappear if the store closed. When the store owner's family faced hardship, illness, death, financial trouble, the community rallied. Customers might pay a little extra, clear their credit accounts early, or organize fundraising efforts through the church. The store was not just a business, it was a community institution, and its survival was everyone's concern. This reciprocity extended to small daily interactions. Customers brought news and gossip to share with the owner. They reported on the health of neighbors who had not been seen in a while. They warned about troublemakers or suspicious activity. The information flowed both ways across the counter, strengthening the bonds that held the community together. For children, the corner store was where you learned that you were part of something larger than your immediate family. Every time you walked through that door, you entered a public space where you represented your family and yourself. Your behavior reflected on your parents. Your politeness or rudeness was noted and remembered. You learned that reputation mattered, that your actions had consequences beyond the moment, that you were embedded in a network of observation and accountability. The store owner's relationship with your family gave them authority over you. If they told you to stop running, you stopped. If they told you to wait your turn, you waited. If they told you to leave, you left. Defying the store owner was like defying a teacher or a family friend. Disrespect that would get back to your parents and result in trouble at home. This extended authority was part of what people meant when they talked about the village raising children. The corner store owner was part of that village. The decline of the corner store began in the 1970s and accelerated through the 1980s and beyond. Chain convenience stores moved into neighborhoods, offering longer hours and lower prices made possible by corporate supply chains. Supermarkets grew larger and more accessible as car ownership increased. Economic changes pushed many small store owners out of business. The riots that followed Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination destroyed many black-owned businesses that were never rebuilt. The corner stores that remained often changed hands, purchased by owners who did not live in the neighborhood and did not know the customers by name. The personal relationships that had defined the corner store experience faded. The credit book disappeared, replaced by signs that said, "No credit." The patience with children choosing candy gave way to impatience and suspicion. The store became a transaction rather than a relationship. For those who grew up with the old corner stores, the change was painful to witness. Something valuable was being lost, something that could not be measured in economic terms. The corner store had been more than a business. It had been a community institution, a gathering place, a classroom, a village square. Its disappearance left a hole that chain stores could not fill. Today, the corner stores of the 1960s and 1970s exist mostly in memory. The buildings might still stand, occupied by new businesses or converted to other uses, but the experience of walking through that screen door, being greeted by name, choosing penny candy from behind the glass, and catching up on neighborhood news while your purchases were bagged, that experience is gone. It belonged to a specific time and place, a way of life that has passed, but for those who experienced it, the corner store remains vivid in memory. The smell, the sounds, the faces, the feeling of belonging to something larger than yourself. These memories are precious because they connect us to a time when community was built face to face, when relationships mattered more than efficiency, when children were raised by everyone who knew them. What do you remember about your neighborhood corner store? Who owned it and what was their name? What candy did you buy with your pennies? What stories did you hear while waiting in line? Share your memories in the comments below. Let us celebrate together the stores that served us and the owners who knew our names. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel and ring that bell so you never miss another journey into the beautiful past that made us who we are. This is our story. This is our neighborhood. This is our corner store, living on in every one of us who remembers.